Hello students, today we are going to see the last point of our first chapter, that is uh, as we are studying the first chapter, basic concepts in sociology, and this is the last point, that is social change, concept, characteristics and factors of social change. Now first we will see the objective and learning outcome of this particular topic. The objective is to understand the concept, characteristics, and major factors of social change. And the learning outcome is after studying this topic, we are able to, you as the students are able to explain the social change, identify its characteristics, and describe the major factors that influence it. Let's begin and try to understand the meaning of social change. Social change means changes in the way people live, behave, think, and interact with each other over a period of time. For example, earlier people mostly use letters to communicate over long distance. Today, people communicating with the help of new technology or new methods such as WhatsApp, video call, and social media. This is an example of social change. Social change is natural and continuous in its process. Change is a normal part of life. Society keeps changing within time. For example, technology has changed the way we study, from blackboards and textbooks to smart boards and educational apps and online classes. Society is dynamic and constantly changing over a period of time. As we can see, the society today is different from the society from last 1950s or 1900s. For example, today many people work remotely using computers and the internet, which was uncommon in the past. Social institutions also change. Social institution, we know what all are the social institutions: family, religion, education, government. All these are the example of social change. So over a period of time, we can also see the changes which is taking place in social institutions. Okay, so family, for example, family, if we take the example of family, before we used to had a joint family. Now it changed to the joint family to the nuclear family, and now people are having or going beyond it, that people, they don't wanted to live in, or they don't wanted to get married, so they are going in live in relationship, or we are having an example like how the religion the people are practicing in their day-to-day life. Then if we talk about example that society adapt to changing condition, society adjusts and develops when new needs or situation arise. For example, digital payments have changed how people shop and transfer money. Sociology studies social change. Sociology study how society is changing, why it is changing, and what direction the changes are taking place in the society. For example, a sociologist might study how social media has changed friendship and communication. Now let's begin to understand the definition of social change. According to Davis, sorry, yes, according to Davis, social change means changes in the social organization, especially the structure and function of society. In a simple term, we'll try to understand according to Davis, social change happens when the way society is organized or functions changes. For example, in many families, household responsibility were strongly divided by gender. Today, in many families, responsibility are shared more equally. This shows a change in the social structure and function of the family. Then we are having another definition given by Anderson and Parker, and according to them, social change involves alteration in the structure or functioning of social forms or processes themselves. In a simple way to understand this, that uh, social change occurs when the way social group, institution, or processes work changes. For example, education has changed from mainly classroom based learning to online classes or digital resources or virtual learning. The basic institution of education remains, but its way of functioning has changed. So easily we can difference between these two definitions. According to Davis, he is focusing on changes in social organization, structure, and functions. And according to Anderson and Parker, they are focusing on the changes in the structure, functioning of social forms and processes. Now let's understand the characteristics of social change. The first is universal. Social change happens in all society, although the speed may be different in a different society. For example, here technology has changed society around the world, but some society adopt new technology faster than the other one. Then the other second characteristics we are having, that is community change. Social change affects group or society as a whole, not just one person. For example, the introduction of online education changes the way many students and teachers learn and teach. Third characteristics of social change is unequal speed. Changes does not happen at the same speed everywhere. For example, digital payments may become common quickly in cities while some rural areas may adopt them more slowly. Then fourth characteristic is time related. The speed and nature of change differ from one period to another. For example, mobile phones develop gradually, but smartphones and apps change communication very quickly. Then we are having a natural and essential. Changes is a natural and continuous part of society because people's needs keep changing. For example, as work patterns change, many organizations introduce flexible or remote working working areas. Then the sixth one is difficult to predict. We cannot know exactly what society will look like in the future. For example, a few decades ago, it would have been seen difficult to predict how important social media would become. Now, the next characteristic is chain reaction. A change in one area can cause changes in other area, and that's how we can understand this in the chain reaction. For example, here smartphones. Because of smartphones, we are using more internet, or uses of internet has increased, and with the help of this, now more and more, because of this, we are doing more and more online shopping, and online shopping is grows over a period of time. And because of this online shopping, the business also has changed. Okay, so the business, they changes the way they were selling their product. So this we can see that how the changes are taking in one place is changing the other part also. Then we are having an example, another characteristic, that is multiple factors. Social change is caused by many factors working together, such as technology, economy, politics, and environment. For example, climate concern, technology, and government policy can together encourage the use of electrical vehicles. Then we are having another characteristic, and the last one is modification and replacement. Change can either modify old practices or completely replace them with new ones. For example, physical banking has been modified by the mobile banking, while some paper-based processes have been replaced by the digital system. So easy way to understand or remember this is social change is universal, affects society, happens at different speeds, and it is continuous, unpredictable, interconnected, and caused by many factors. It can modify old practices or replace them with the new ones. Now let's see the factors of social change. Social change does not happen because of just one reason, but there are different reasons or different factors because of which the change comes in the society. The first is biological factor. Changes in population such as age, birth rate, death rate, and composition can affect society. For example, if number of elderly people increase in the society, it may need more health care and elderly care services. Then the second factor is physical factor. Now in this include climate, flood, earthquakes, natural resources, and geography. For example, if flood occur frequently in an area, people may move to safer places and changing the community and its way of life. Now the third characteristic is technological factor. Changes in technology, communication, production, transportation can greatly affect or change the society. For example, here I'll give you, that is smartphone. Okay, smartphone and the internet have changed how people used to communicate, study, shop, and work. Next factor we are having, that is cultural factor. Changes in beliefs, values, attitudes, tradition, and ideas are called as a cultural factor, and which bring the change in the people's behavior. For example, changing attitude towards women's education have encouraged more girls nowadays pursuing the higher education. And the next factor is technological factor, and technological culture or technological factor, which is talking about the technology and culture influence each other. For example, social media provides new ways to communicate, but cultural values influence what people post and how they use the social media. Now, from this lesson, from this topic, we are what we have learned from this, that is social change usually happens because several factors work together rather than the one. Okay, so here we finish with this topic, that is social change. Okay, I hope you have understood this, and here we finish with our first unit. Okay, so we'll continue the second unit in our next presentation. Thank you.